Imagine a dry, cracked field under a silent sky. The earth has waited for months. Then, the rain comes not with favor, not with intention. Today's idea is simple, but powerful. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Seneca the Younger, the Roman Stoic who wrote this, lived a life surrounded by power, politics, betrayal, and yet he spoke of peace, clarity, and readiness. It falls wherever it pleases, and only the seeds already sown, already resting beneath the soil, rise into life. Rain does not choose, but preparation does. What if it's something we prepare for long before it arrives? Welcome to this reflection, where we explore ancient philosophy, a gentle guide through modern chaos, through Seneca's words and life, through real stories, and through the Stoic mindset that teaches us how to meet chaos not with panic, but with presence. He meant that we don't wait for life to give us what we want. We prepare ourselves so that, when the unexpected arrives, we are ready, not scrambling. A startup becomes a unicorn, a stranger wins a lottery. But if we look closer, what seems lucky is often the result of quiet, steady effort. We often think of luck as a gift, random, sudden, and selective, but what if it's not? Was it luck that made the world listen, or the depth of preparation? The artist who is discovered has likely painted for years unseen, and the startup that thrives often stands on years of failed prototypes and patient development. When the national spotlight came, she didn't panic. She was ready. These are not exceptions. These are reminders, a man who saw power up close and death even closer. But its origin is far more contemplative than motivational. It was a way of life. They trained not just their minds, but their characters. They accepted that life is uncertain, even unfair. In that spirit, every hour becomes a step toward readiness. He didn't know when his life might be taken or his reputation destroyed. But he still prepared. He studied, wrote, reflected. In Hindu philosophy, the Bhagavad Gita teaches action without attachment. Do your work, regardless of the outcome. In Zen practice, monks sweep the floor daily, not because it's dirty, but because the act itself prepares the mind. He used his time as though opportunity might come tomorrow or death might. This wasn't pessimism, it was clarity. They imagined hardship not to worrying themselves, but to remove fear. So when difficulty arrived, they were calm. When opportunity came, they were composed, becoming ready for what may come, whenever it comes. And yet, they believed we can always prepare our response. Are your habits shaping the version of you that will be needed when the opportunity arises? Are you planting seeds even in dry soil so that when the rain comes, you don't scramble, you rise? He believed that time is our most precious resource, not to be wasted waiting, but used in building who we are. It's letting go of when the door might open and focusing on who you will be when it does, of building a life that doesn't rely on luck but welcomes it when it comes. And we'll explore how he prepared not just his words, but his soul for both triumph and tragedy. Join us there. He became better in a world that often wasn't. His words remind us, the moment we prepare well, we are already lucky because we've become capable of meeting life, whatever it brings. Opportunity might come as a job interview, a chance to lead, a conversation that changes everything. If luck is a meeting point between preparation and opportunity, then how do we prepare? Truly. What does Stoic preparation look like when life is uncertain, when power is dangerous, when death is near? These moments pass quickly, they do not wait. They ask, silently, are you ready? Being ready doesn't mean being perfect, it means being clear in purpose and steady in action. It means showing up, even when no one is watching. Let's shift to our world for a moment. Exiled, recalled, praised, and condemned, he lived in a world where fortunes turned fast, and still, he wrote. This video will explore that question. Let's begin. Seneca was not a man of quiet comfort. He was an advisor to Nero, Rome's most infamous emperor, a playwright, a philosopher. The quote we reflect on luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity is often heard today in business seminars, TED Talks, or printed on posters. Seneca wasn't talking about becoming rich or famous, he was speaking to the soul. For the Stoics, preparation was more than a task list. Today, success seems sudden. A video goes viral. The athlete who wins gold did not begin last week. Consider Oprah Winfrey. Before she became a media icon, she spent years on local TV, often overlooked, constantly improving. Or think of Charles Darwin. He published on the origin of species after over 20 years of silent study. Luck, in these stories, is not magic, it is timing meeting readiness. In the Stoic view, opportunity is beyond our control. It comes or it doesn't, but preparation is always in our hands. This is where Seneca's wisdom shines. He once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." The Stoics practiced what they called premeditatio malorum, the rehearsal of possible misfortune. Let's bring this into our daily lives. You might not control when the door opens, but you decide whether you're prepared to walk through it. This is where preparation becomes internal. It's not just skills or savings. It's mindset, courage, focus. Seneca lived in uncertainty. Across cultures, this idea appears again and again. Even in ancient Egypt, scribes trained for decades copying scrolls, mastering symbols so that when the pharaoh called, they could answer with precision. These weren't rituals of ambition, they were acts of alignment. Now pause, breathe, ask yourself, are you living today as if tomorrow may change everything? This is not a philosophy of control, it is a philosophy of care. So, what is preparation? Is it study? Practice? Discipline? Yes, but it's more. Preparation is a way of seeing the world. It's choosing to be ready not someday, but now. Seneca didn't wait for the world to get better. This brings us to the next part of our reflection. In part 2, we'll step deeper into Seneca's life, from palace halls to forced exile, from letters to legacy. In the marble halls of ancient Rome, beneath domed ceilings where power whispered through silk and steel, Seneca the Younger sat writing. He wasn't commanding troops, nor celebrating triumphs. He was reflecting. While the world outside grew louder, Seneca turned inward. He rose high, serving as advisor to Emperor Nero, only to fall just as swiftly. It was the result of a life spent watching men rise and fall by fortune's hand. Seneca didn't aim to be lucky, he aimed to be ready. For him, true security didn't come from status or wealth. It came from the quiet, disciplined work of preparing the self. We begin to see that what matters most is not whether the road is smooth, but whether we are steady. And steadiness, like strength, must be practiced before it is needed. Epictetus, once enslaved, later a revered teacher, reminded his students, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will, then your life will flow well." For him, freedom meant not changing the world, but changing your expectations. He lived through banishment, betrayal, political danger, and eventually death by his own hand. One day you were honored, the next accused. In this world, being ready meant being unshaken when the floor gave way. And Seneca's writings, especially his letters to Lucilius, show us how he built that readiness. He didn't preach perfection. He recommended journaling, self-examination, meditation on time and mortality. His toolkit was practical, his tone, calm, and if we accept that, then when life surprises us, when we lose, fail, or stumble, we do not unravel. We know that luck is rarely random, we see it in others. The artist discovered overnight who has painted for a decade. The nurse who calmly navigates a crisis because she's trained for every possibility. How do we embody it, not just admire it? The parent who responds with patience, not because the moment is easy, but because they've cultivated that response. When Nero ordered his death, Seneca did not plead or resist. He opened his veins, spoke to his loved ones, and offered one last lesson in composure. Or are you also quietly training for the days when life turns? When the phone call changes everything, when the loss comes, or the door opens? Stoicism asks us to practice readiness, not just ambition, because opportunity is not always joyful. Sometimes, it comes disguised as crisis, but when the moment comes it acts. And often, the greatest growth arrives in disguise. He had prepared for that moment all his life, not with swords, but with thoughts, not by clinging, but by accepting. He observed, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. But he could prepare his character. And that's what Stoicism teaches us. You cannot predict the day, but you can decide how you will meet it. Not perfectly, but with dignity. Here, the obstacle is no longer the enemy, it becomes the curriculum. That is the Stoic shift. What harms us can also form us, if we are prepared, because we never built our peace on things we could lose. They train not to avoid hardship, but to withstand it with grace. In this light, luck becomes less magical and more mechanical. It is not a gift, it is a collision. A meeting point between what we cannot control and what we have quietly, persistently, trained ourselves to be ready for. But they keep working because the day inspiration arrives. They must already be ready to shape it. That is how Stoics view life. Inspiration and opportunity may come, or they may not. What matters is that we are not idle. It was about shaping your soul, training your mind to meet life not when it's gentle, but when it's wild. In their view, we are not victims of fate, we are students of it, and the best students don't wait for the test to begin studying. They live as if the test could come at any moment. Through it all, he wrote with calmness and conviction. He didn't just teach Stoicism, he practiced it. He embodied what it meant to prepare not for comfort, but for hardship. He lived with the knowledge that peace was not promised, and yet could be cultivated from within. He knew something most didn't. The real test of life does not come in moments of peace, but in moments of chaos. And the soul, if unprepared, will falter. Seneca's life was a storm. His famous quote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity," was not a motivational slogan. To the Stoics, preparation wasn't about sharpening your resume or learning one more skill, just in case. At the heart of Stoic preparation, a practice known as premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Stoics would mentally rehearse misfortunes before they happened, not because they wanted them, but because imagining adversity robbed it of its sting. When hardship finally arrived, it was not a stranger. They had already greeted it in their minds, and they knew the path through. This is not pessimism, it is clarity. Seneca believed that by visualizing what could go wrong, we loosen fear's grip. We stop being shocked by difficulty. Think of a sculptor preparing marble. They chip away each day, not knowing which sculpture will come from the stone. Seneca was far from alone in this wisdom. Other great Stoic minds echoed the same truth. To Epictetus, preparation meant emotional discipline, accepting that much lies outside our control. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome and commander of vast armies, wrote similar reflections in his Meditations. All three thinkers, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus, agreed that life is unpredictable. But they also agreed that we can prepare our inner lives for anything. Seneca's Rome was brutal, politically unstable, and morally uncertain. Friends betrayed friends. Perhaps most striking is how he faced his final test. What makes this even more powerful is that Seneca did not know when this moment would come. He could not plan the hour. Now ask yourself, are you only preparing for the days when things go right? Seneca's words continue to resonate not because they make us feel good, but because they make us feel real. We sense the truth in them. This kind of readiness is not loud. It is quiet, steady, invisible. It does not post. It does not seek applause. And so, we return to the central question. If luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity, then what does true preparation look like in everyday life? There's a quiet truth about excellence it rarely shouts. Most often, it is built in silence, in early mornings, when no one is watching, in choices made when applause is far away. What we call luck from the outside often looks like long, uneventful preparation from within. It's the employee who's ready when a surprise promotion opens. These are the fields where opportunity often appears and where preparation must be planted long before it arrives. The writer whose words seem effortless because they've rewritten the same paragraph 10 times. And yet, those who thrive aren't usually the most connected or charismatic. Fortune may open the door, but only discipline can walk through it. Often, it's the one who quietly studied the system, who offered clarity during meetings, who practiced resilience when things fell apart. The one who, when called upon, didn't flinch. We often treat love and friendship as spontaneous, emotional encounters. But the truth is, our ability to sustain them depends on how we've prepared to show up. A Stoic prepares for relationships not by memorizing scripts, but by practicing virtues, patience, empathy, honesty, restraint, because they had rehearsed that moment 1,000 times in solitude. Not as a way to become bitter, but to ground himself. To not be surprised, your relationship with your own mind. This is where Stoicism truly lives. What fault have I resisted? In what respect am I better? This wasn't guilt-driven. It was grounded in curiosity. A desire to prepare, not to be perfect, but to be more awake tomorrow than he was today. Because no matter what happens outside, it is here, inside, that everything is felt. When you meditate, journal, walk without distraction, you are building that space, that pause, and in that pause lives all of your freedom, not to a God of certainty, but to a practice of readiness. Not with a trumpet, but with a whisper, and when it does, you will be ready. Not because you hoped for it, but because you trained for it. Their rituals are small, but sacred. 10 minutes of silence, 5 lines in a journal, a daily act of kindness. Each is a brick in the fortress of the soul. Opportunity can arrive, but if your thoughts are scattered, your emotions undisciplined, your purpose unclear, you may miss it entirely. Can you stay present when someone is angry? Can you listen when your ego wants to speak? Can you forgive, not because you're weak, but because you practice seeing the bigger picture? Are you ready to meet them with your full self? Who do you become in that moment? If you have trained your mind to observe, to breathe, to stay steady, then even the worst moment will not destroy you. It may hurt, but it will not disorient, because you have prepared for it. You have already walked that terrain in thought. Maybe it's practicing deep breathing in moments of stress. You prepare because you don't, and in a world of uncertainty, that quiet readiness becomes your greatest strength. Maybe it's listening without interrupting. Maybe it's saving money not out of fear, but out of discipline. These are acts of preparation, and your soul has calluses. Or will the moment pass because you haven't cultivated the emotional capacity to truly receive them? In this sense, love favors the prepared, not because they demand more, but because they offer more. To stay centered in his own values, even when others faltered, to offer space instead of judgment, to hold your center even when the moment pulls you away from it. And these habits, like muscles, must be trained, not invented on the spot. This was his form of preparation for conflict, for misunderstanding, for imperfection. A Stoic doesn't prepare to impress others. They prepare because they value the work itself. They don't wait for stress to hit before deciding how to act. They already know, because they've trained their response, like a soldier sharpening his sword every morning, not out of fear, but out of principle. Whether seen or unseen, they act with excellence because it aligns with their principles. They are the most consistent. The ones who sharpen their craft, even when no one's asking, learning from silence. That's where preparation lives, not in the moment of performance, but in the invisible hours before it. The ones who read a little deeper, practice a little longer, reflect a little more honestly. The person who appears naturally calm, but has been meditating for years. In a world chasing results, the Stoics remind us to fall in love with process. Because life doesn't announce when a door will open, The job you dream of might call tomorrow. The person who changes your life might walk by this afternoon. You don't get to schedule those moments, but you can be ready, and readiness is not created on the spot. It's trained every day. In the Stoic framework, there are 3 pillars of life where this preparation matters most: your work, your relationships, and your inner world. Let's begin with work. In modern life, career often feels like a game of timing. Being in the right place at the right time, Seneca believed in this. He wrote that luck is never enough to sustain success. Think of a musician. The audience hears the final song, but the Stoic notices the hours spent tuning an instrument, practicing scales. Now consider the workplace. The coworker who gets promoted isn't always the most outspoken. Preparation in work is not just about skill, it's about character. The Stoic builds habits that outlast pressure. Let's now turn to relationships. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest." Relationships thrive not when both people are perfect, but when both have prepared for imperfection. Preparation here means learning to respond rather than react. Imagine meeting someone truly aligned with you, a friend, a partner, a mentor. Now, we arrive at the most important space of all the inner life. Seneca advised daily self-examination. At the end of the day, he would ask, "What bad habit have I cured today?" Mental preparation is not about building walls. It's about creating space between impulse and action, between stimulus and response. Imagine a moment of crisis, a sudden loss, a betrayal, a health scare. The Stoic doesn't aim for an easy life. They aim for a life that can weather anything, and preparation is their daily prayer. List 3 things you can do this week to prepare not just for success, but for difficulty. And most importantly, remember, you do not prepare because you know what's coming. Because someday, maybe tomorrow, opportunity will arrive. If today were the day everything changed, would you be ready? That question isn't designed to stir fear, but to spark awareness. Because life rarely announces its turning points. Sometimes, the moment you've been waiting for arrives disguised as something mundane. The Stoics never chased luck, they prepared. Quietly, daily, intentionally, because they knew the unexpected always comes not when we want it, but when it will. The kind that lets you stay calm in an interview, speak with clarity in conflict, love with intention, not desperation. The kind of luck that grows not from chance, but from character. And what is that waste? Time spent waiting instead of preparing, hoping instead of building, complaining instead of training. The Stoic reclaims that time not with frantic effort, but with steady intention. One breath, one action, one thought at a time. This is the Stoic way to stop chasing outcomes and start shaping yourself. You rehearse your values. You ask yourself, if the chance came now, would I be ready? Have I sharpened my mind, strengthened my patience? Their preparation didn't eliminate struggle, it gave them tools to walk through it. Instead, he taught us to build ourselves into people who could meet both triumph and tragedy with the same steady soul. Because when you prepare well, everything becomes useful, even the hardships, even the delays, even the quiet seasons. A career pivot, a deeper relationship, inner peace. None of these appear overnight. It's knowing your worth when the door doesn't open. It's walking calmly when storms hit. It's gratitude without guarantee. And that kind of luck, it can't be bought, it's earned. Not the kind you hope for, but the kind you train for. In solitude, in stillness, in staying true to your path. They arrive slowly, after you've spent time tending to your thoughts, your habits, your space. Not how you act when the spotlight finds you, but how you act when no one's watching. The Stoic doesn't wait to become lucky. They live in such a way that when life offers them a moment, they rise, because they already rehearsed the rising. You only need to be steady. You don't need to know what's next. You only need to be ready for what could be, and when the time comes, you won't need luck. You'll need only one thing, the quiet courage to step forward. Because you've been preparing for this all along. If you wait for luck to shape your life, you'll wait forever. But if you shape yourself, you become lucky. Each breath you take in awareness, each word spoken with intention, each act of self-discipline is part of your fortune, not in the future, in this very moment. They didn't avoid fear, they stood beside it, with courage. And that, in turn, made them resilient to both misfortune and success. Practice showing up fully. Not to impress, but to serve the moment well. This is a quiet power. Preparation, in Stoic thought, is not about stockpiling resources or rehearsing speeches in the mirror. They are the inner gym where resilience is built. Prepare differently for your day. The Stoic would answer, live that way every day. Not with pressure, but with purpose, because we do not control when life changes, but we do control whether we're ready. Over time, they form a kind of spiritual muscle. And when the opportunity comes, it won't surprise you. You'll simply step forward, not to become cynical, but prepared. That practice of premeditatio malorum, imagining what could go wrong, helped him respond with equanimity. He trained not for comfort, but for life as it truly is, and that training gave him freedom. It is an inner cultivation of mind, of spirit, of clarity. When the clouds finally burst, not every seed responds. Only those with roots, quiet and deep beneath the surface, rise to greet the water. Life works the same way. Opportunity does not wait. It does not knock twice. It simply arrives, and either you're ready or you're not. Seneca believed that luck, in some divine favor granted to the chosen few. It is a natural consequence of readiness. The rain falls on many fields, but only the prepared soil welcomes it. Let's revisit that image from the beginning, a dry field awaiting rain. So, what kind of luck are you building? Not the flashy, jackpot kind, but the enduring kind. Marcus Aurelius began his days reminding himself that people would be rude, unfair, and selfish. In a world obsessed with outcomes, the Stoic prepares without attachment to results. They rise early not for praise, but for presence. They write not to be read, but to reflect. They meditate not to escape chaos, but to meet it with a calm heart. The luck they build is not loud, it is subtle and strong. It's the kind that endures storms. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." To build real luck is to live like you might meet opportunity today. In modern life, being ready is often confused with perfection, but the Stoics weren't perfect. They were present. Let's bring it closer to you. What are you preparing for right now? Even the smallest routines matter. The way you sit with silence, the way you choose to respond instead of react. These micro moments are your training. What if you knew the opportunity of a lifetime was coming tomorrow? Would you sleep differently tonight? Speak differently to those around you? Seneca did not romanticize chance. He respected its role, but never depended on it. Real luck is being prepared for whatever happens and still being at peace when nothing does. So here is the question. One final time. Are you building the kind of luck you want? Not the kind that surprises you, but the kind that reflects you. If today is the day that opportunity knocks, will you recognize it? Or will it pass quietly by while you're still getting ready? And if it doesn't come today, will you still prepare? That's the real test. Let your preparation be a meditation, a declaration that you are becoming the kind of person who meets the unknown not with fear, but with presence. You don't need to be perfect. Thank you for walking this journey with us. See you in the next meditation.